Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the Bundesliga show, brought to you by Over the Bar for another rendition of the Bundesliga fantasy football show. Joining myself, as per usual, is Runa. Runa, how are you doing this morning?
I'm good, thanks. I'm looking forward to another weekend of fantasy football, and there's a tough decision to be made up front in terms of who to start this week, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, if you're joining us live, hello and good morning. Obviously, if you're joining us later on to get your fix of fantasy football, please do enjoy and sit back and enjoy the fun with us. Make sure you made the most of Runa's excellent tips and hints because they are often make or break. Certainly, I think one make or break was the Seru Girassi one of last week. I was very close to not even putting him in, but I did it last minute just based on the fact that I felt the need to, and it definitely saved my weekend. And it could have well made or broken other people's as well. So yeah, before we just start with our defenders for Runa, make sure you smash a like on the video. Genuinely, it really helps with the algorithms and pushing out the show. You wouldn't believe how much a thumbs up really pushes us in the right direction. So please do smash a thumbs up on the show today. Commenting along for live questions. I don't think we've had any questions asked pre the show going out. So anything that comes into the live chat, we'll try and get through everything and as much as possible. And of course, press the red button to subscribe to the channel. The channel's well and above the 1K mark. We want to keep on pushing. So please do join us in the fantastic community that we are building day in, day out. So without further delay, let's crack on. And we've got our defenders going below on screen for you. So Runa, would you like to start with your budget pick? And I shall do the honors on the share screen as well.
Yeah, my budget pick this week is Pascal Stenzel, who I think is a great enabler this week. Pretty cheap, costs 4 million, and plays for Stuttgart side, who are pretty heavy favorites at home to Darmstadt. So yeah, he's a player who can make it possible for you to get some of the more expensive assets into a team, and at the same time he can do well, I think, given Stuttgart's favorable matchup. So a good player there for the price, I think. And my mid-price pick is Mitchell Weiser, a bit of an expensive mid-price pick at 10.8 million. Nevertheless, I think Weiser is one of the options to consider who are not playing for Leverkusen, Bayern, and Stuttgart, who are the three heavy favorites this week at home. Weiser scored last week. Werder didn't perform well. Lost to Heidenheim, of course, but Weiser is usually always quite involved in the attacking play, and plays as a right wing back, of course, and she still picked up 9 points last week despite conceding 4 goals. And then also, of course, Werder have a pretty good fixture this week against Köln at home. Then they have Darmstadt, and then they have Hoffenheim before the international break. So 3 good games there for them, I think, and should be possible for them to bounce back. And then finally, Jeremy Frimpong is my premium pick. Probably don't have to say that much about him. He's obviously one of the best attacking defenders in the league, has a great matchup at home to Heidenheim. And on top of that, he was also rested last night in the Europa League. So he should have plenty of energy going into this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. Some clear matchups there. I think are really intriguing, and you can't go further than Frimpong from a defensive point of view. I'll just double check. There's no questions currently in the live chat in regards to defenders. So obviously, if there are, pop them in to the chat, and we'll get to them as soon as possible. Any other honourable mentions, Runa, to maybe anticipate any defender questions, and then we'll move on to midfielders?
I still think Grimaldo from Leverkusen is a good option. Obviously scored a great free kick against Bayern, and you could decide to double up on Leverkusen at home against Heidenheim with both Grimaldo and Frimpong. And then, of course, Alphonso Davies the usual suspects, Alphonso Davies, and also the Leipzig defenders Raum and Henrichs. If you want to go a different way, they're playing Gladbach, and as we all know, Gladbach have been pretty poor this season, and Leipzig are in great form. On the other hand, and Raum, I think, picked up 20 points last week, so also provided an assist in the Champions League in midweek. So he's a player in great form. So yeah, Leipzig assets are worth keeping or considering too, but just remember they have Bayern next week.
Yeah, absolutely. A few questions starting to filter through now, which is lovely to see. I think, good morning to Captain Rex, able to catch you live this week, so that's grand. Glad you're able to join with us. We'll just come to the first one that Captain Rex had asked is in regards to midfield, so we'll come back to that one afterwards, Pal, and just a few coming in now in regards to defenders. So let's bring those up on the screen for everyone to see. One in from regular viewer Jeff. So good morning, Jeff. Hope you're having a good start to your Friday. Trimmel, is Trimmel worth a shout? Every source has him starting. Runa, what do you think about Trimmel? Worth in as a bit of a bolter or as a viable option to maybe get in one's team?
Well, if he starts, I think he could be a good differential, but I just think there are a lot of other good options, and the uncertainty surrounding his starting place is putting me off a bit, especially considering that, as I said, there are so many other good options: Davis, Weiss, Frimpong, Grimaldo. I know they're more expensive, so Trimmel could be a cheaper option to go with to free up funds elsewhere, but I would personally look elsewhere, also because of the uncertainty about him or about him starting on the right or Juranovic. I think it's quite hard to predict. Looks like Trimmel will start, but you never know with Urs Fischer.
Yeah. Sorry, next one in. Captain Rex has asked about Grimaldo. Is he going to start? Because he is a player that did start midweek. Well, we say midweek yesterday for Leverkusen. Yeah. So obviously you've already mentioned him, Runa. So we anticipate that Grimaldo will start, but maybe possibly not play the full 90 if he's already had a decent amount of minutes under his belt.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he'll start. Arthur, who Leverkusen brought in to compete with him on the left, has picked up a long-term injury. So there's no real competition for Grimaldo at the moment. So pretty sure he'll play this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. Thoughts on Hummels? Obviously, goal-scoring hero from... that's a new comment. Sorry, I'll come to that in a moment. Mats Hummels, Runa, obviously big goals for Dortmund last time out. Threat from set pieces as ever. And obviously, maybe it's time for Dortmund to start flying, but is he a defender you to consider?
No, he's not, because it's not like he's particularly cheap, and I think you can't expect him to pop up and score two headers every week. I know he's a set piece threat, but I would rather rely on wingbacks who we expect to come forward and pick up points on a more consistent basis via crosses and scores more goals generally and do passes to shots.
Yep, absolutely. Last one on defenders, as the questions well and truly started flooding in as soon as I said there wasn't any. Is it worth selling? So this is from Jeff again. Worth selling Alphonso Davies to create room for Weiser and Grimaldo? So potentially Jeff wanting to obviously take out Davies to make room for a couple of players for more points and maybe doubling up, presuming that Jeff maybe has Frimpong as well. So is it worth getting rid of Davies to make room for others?
I don't think so. Bayern also have an amazing matchup at home against Bochum, and as we saw on match day 1, it can really hurt you if you don't own Davies when he's really hauling. So I think that would be a big risk to take. I would definitely keep Davis.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll just bring up the midfielders picks for Runa so that you can see again they're all going below screen. Just to pick up on the comment from Reza and a comment in regards to not wanting to possibly play the Bundesliga game anymore, and obviously what made it unique was how hands-on it was. The subs, the risk reward for stars and formation changes. So obviously, Reza, definitely there are changes that were made during the summer that maybe not everyone agreed with, and thought that it would make the game slightly easier. But yeah, we are still having loads of fun with it. We do dearly hope that you do continue to play and watch and enjoy with us as well. Maybe after a good weekend this weekend, that you'll feel renewed and rejuvenated about the game. So thank you anyway for your comment, Reza. Right then, midfielders, Runa. We'll start with your budget pick as per usual.
Yeah, and that's Team Skage from Darmstadt this week, and I know it's against the odds, but Darmstadt actually managed to score 3 goals against Gladbach last week, and Skage was one of the players who got on the score sheet, and he plays up front despite being a midfielder, and as we can see, he's pretty cheap too. So yeah, we all love an out of position player if he plays in a more attacking role than he's listed at in the game. So if you want to do something different, or you want to bring in a fairly cheap fifth midfielder to free up funds, I think Skage is a player who could have another good game this week, even though Stuttgart are favorites. And yeah, moving on to my mid-price pick, that's Enzo Milo, and he's also a differential this week. A lot of players already have Chris Führig, so and understandably so. But if you're looking for a different attacking option in midfield from Stuttgart, I think Enzo Milo has proven that he's capable of doing extremely well, and he can get on the score sheet and provide assists as well. So also a quite reasonable price there, given Stuttgart's great matchup. And then finally, my premium pick is Jamal Musiala, who, as we saw against Manchester United, he seems to be back to his best after working his way back from an injury, and feel pretty confident that he'll start again after that performance. Can't see why he shouldn't. Probably won't get the full game, but nevertheless, with Bayern at home to Bochum, I think he's a player you don't really want to miss out on this week.
Yeah, I as a Man United fan and Bundesliga enthusiast, I was able to obviously watch the game midweek and not particularly enjoy his performance, but appreciate it, shall I say. During the week, he was outstanding in that matchup. So yeah, absolutely, really a good player to include. Just want to see if there's any midfielder comments then from anyone and everyone. I knew that there was one from Captain Rex earlier, so I'll bring that up on screen for you, Runa, to have a look at. And it's basically thoughts on Grifo this week. Benched but picked up 15 points last week. Obviously, he came on for the injured Gregorisic for Freiburg in their losing efforts, but obviously it was important in the goals that were scored prior to half time when Freiburg did steal the lead. Obviously, Freiburg getting confidence boosting an important win last night as well, 3-2. So that will no doubt help to maybe pick up the slack a little bit and get their season going, hopefully. So, Runa, what are your thoughts on Grifo? Are we likely to see him start? And then is it worth, using him as a fantasy asset?
I think he had a pretty poor start to the season. I was really disappointed with his first few games, and then I think he was benched as a result of that. And obviously he came on and made a real difference for Freiburg against Dortmund, desperate to prove what he's capable of. And he also scored last night in the Europa League against Olympiacos from the penalty spot. So looks like he's starting to return to the form that we saw from him last season, and therefore I'm confident he'll play again. And I actually think that, given his potential, his ownership is quite low. It's only 9% at the moment. So I think in a week where many people will look to double up on Leverkusen and get Musiala in, and many people probably have Brandt too. I think he's a good differential in that same price category, and he's usually involved when Freiburg attack, takes all the set pieces and everything. So pretty good differential, as we all know. Grifo is capable of doing really well every week.
Yep. Agreed. One more question for a few good shouts from Jeff in the chat here. Thoughts on Steiger from Bremen and Beste from Heidenheim? Both players really interesting. I know Mark and you, Rune, have been singing Beste's praises since he's been introduced to the Bundesliga this season. So definitely an interesting thought. However, obviously a tough matchup for Heidenheim this week.
Yeah, I think Jens Stage, he's a player I know well. He's Danish like myself, so I also watched him in the Superliga here in Denmark, and he's not the usual fantasy asset. I'd say the usual good fantasy asset. He's a bit of a number 8 who also has a lot of defensive responsibility. He was often compared to Thomas Delaney here in Denmark, also played for FC Copenhagen, but he is capable of getting into the box and getting a goal here and there. So I think for the price, 4.5 million, he's a pretty good option given Werder's good run of fixtures, and a good alternative, probably a more safe alternative to Skage. I'd say he probably has a lower ceiling, but a higher floor than Skage. And regarding Beste, very impressive, and Heidenheim, I think, are really fun to watch. They play really attacking football, and Beste is sort of their attacking talisman. Much like Grifo from Freiburg, he's usually involved when Heidenheim go on the attack. But I think this week they have a really, really tough matchup against Leverkusen. So I wouldn't bring him in this week, but definitely a player to keep an eye on.
Yeah, and speaking of Leverkusen assets, good point from Captain Rex in the chat here. Was thinking what to do with Florian Wirtz following the Europa League. I think 7 out of 8 times last season he was benched / didn't play the following midweek. So a bit of a kind of a toss-up as to what maybe to do with Florian Wirtz this weekend. Is he going to be rested? We sincerely hope not from a Leverkusen point of view.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember that Wirtz was in a very different situation last year. He was just coming back from a long-term injury, and Leverkusen were really careful with him, and Alonso focused a lot on not giving him too much playing time so that he could be eased back. And that's not the case this year. He's back to full fitness and has been fit for a while. So I don't really think it's comparable. But with that being said, Alonso also said after the game last night that he's going to rotate this season, with Leverkusen being in 3 competitions. And he made 5 changes for the game last night. A bit of a shame that he didn't rest Wirtz, if you were a Wirtz owner, because Hoffmann didn't start, for example, and that surely means that he's going to start this weekend. But I still feel quite sure that Wirtz will start. I don't think there's a direct replacement for him in the Leverkusen squad. I think he's just so important for them, pulling the strings in the attacking midfield role. So I could see him start and maybe get subbed off in the second half when, hopefully for Leverkusen, they've secured the win. So he may not get the full game, but I expect him to play at least.
Yeah, I think from a Leverkusen's perspective, you don't want to start messing around with this grand start that they've had.
Exactly.
Resting assets that you shouldn't be resting as much as you maybe would like to, but it's still so early in the season. We've had an international break as well. It would be surprising, but yeah, absolutely a good point made there in the chat. So we shall move on to the last part of the show, and of course this is around strikers, the big money earners, the big goal getters, and the big points grabbers. So obviously over to you, Runa. We'll start with your budget pick, who's quite an interesting one this week, and I shall do the honours on screen.
Yeah, in a week where I think most people will look at Girassi and Boniface and Kane, maybe Sané. I think Demirovic is an option if you're looking for a cheaper forward and you're looking for a differential. Actually, I was quite surprised to see his total points so far, 40 points.
Yeah.
Quite impressive, especially given Augsburg's results and the way they're playing. Obviously that's 10 points per game. Quite good, and he's also on sale, so it's a way of getting more money in the bank next week if you sell him on. But I also feel like Augsburg have a good matchup at home against Mainz. Augsburg are usually a pretty strong home side, and Mainz have obviously have looked really poor from the start of the season, and they're extremely vulnerable in defense. Have been conceding a lot of goals. So if you want a different option to the premium guys up front, I think Demirovic could be a cheeky differential. Moving on to the mid-price pick, was a bit expensive this week. Girassi, 12.1 million. Also on sale this week, so if you don't have him already, I think it's a total no-brainer to get him in. I think it would be extremely risky actually to go into this match day without Girassi, given his form and Stuttgart's amazing matchup at home against Darmstadt. And I also think Boniface is close to a must-have up front. As we saw last week, he also does well if he doesn't score, because he takes so many shots at goal. Picked up 12 points against Bayern away from home. That says something, and he wasn't even involved in a goal. So just a really, really good fantasy option alone because of his willingness to shoot as much as he can, basically. Obviously Leverkusen have a really, really good matchup this week too. So and I assume that Boniface will start, even if he also played last night. With Patrick Schick still out injured, they don't really have that direct replacement. He's the only real typical striker I think they have at the moment with Schick out. So and as you said, Roy, that was also a good point. I think Xabi Alonso wants to keep going, and with the form Leverkusen have shown so far, it's a bit dangerous to make too many changes, I think. Boniface is also a very, very good option. And then it's all about who to start this week, I think, up front. I'm actually really pondering over that myself, whether to go with Girassi, Boniface, or Kane as my star man, because I think they all three of them have so much potential this week. So it's about choosing the right option. Last week, unfortunately, I didn't go with Girassi, and then he scored a hat trick. So we'll see. I think it's tough this week.
Yeah, I think I'm safe with my front three, but I don't know who to start this week for sure. I think, as you say, Runa, it's incredibly hard with the matchups. I think I might err on the side of Boniface this week. Boniface. If he brings those shooting boots with him, it could be an interesting afternoon. Absolutely, for Sunday match, I think, actually, isn't it? Just quickly come to the chats to see if there are any extra questions. There is one, so I'll come to that in a second. If there are any formation or striker ones, do get them in quickly before we finish up for this morning and for today's show. But a question in regards to, I shall bring it up on screen. Oh, there's another one coming in as well there. Grimaldo or Henriks for a 3-4-3 with Frimpong and Davies. I guess you got your options there of doubling up Leverkusen-wise, which we've already kind of covered, Runa, and obviously the RB Leipzig option and fullbacks. Also got Raum as an option. What are you thinking with the question here?
Yeah, I would personally choose to go with Grimaldo because of the matchup, but then again, Leipzig also have a have a quite good match against a struggling Gladbach side. So I think probably tend to go with Grimaldo because I have higher expectations for Leverkusen after all. But it's also about whether you want to. I mean, if you go with Henriks instead, you spread out the risk a bit more. Because if, say, Leverkusen disappoint and don't have a good game this week, and you choose to go with 2 of 3 defenders from their team, then I mean, then you're not in a good position. Whereas if you get Henriks, then you have a bit more flexibility to spread out the risk more. But personally, I would be willing to take the chance with Leverkusen because I feel quite confident that they will continue with another win.
Yeah. Yeah, it's likely to be a very, very entertaining game. I think the chaps on the prediction show yesterday were saying 4-2 or something like that. So it wouldn't surprise me if there are goals at both ends. But no doubt Grimaldo and Frimpong will be involved from a goal scoring perspective at the very least. One in from Jeff, and I think this may be the last question unless any more come in. And it's just a generic one. Who are some of the other potential rotation concerns this week because of European play? Thinking specifically about Leroy Sané. Obviously, I think we mentioned that we/Runa expects Musiala to get the nods. Obviously, based on this excellent form on Wednesday, and he'd be a very big player to include. Obviously, I can't expect there's going to be anything else in regards to Bayern. Kane's going to play, and yeah. Don't think we'll see Kingsley Coman Runa from the start, or do you think he's potentially a player that might get rotated in?
I think that's the most difficult position to predict, the left wing position for Bayern. I assume Sané will play because I also feel Bayern are in a position where they're still not up to a 100% of what they can do. And Sané is one of the players who's really on a roll at the moment and doing well. So I think Tuchel would like him to carry on that way. And as we know, Sané is a player who can. His performances can be pretty fluctuating from week to week usually, but right now he's just doing well on a consistent basis. And I think Tuchel wants him to keep going like that and to let him play. So the other wing, the question is whether he will give Coman a run out instead of Gnabry, and there's also the possibility of Mathis Till starting actually on the left wing. Tuchel said after the Man United game that Till actually deserves to start at the moment, and every time he comes on, even if he doesn't get a lot of minutes, he makes a difference. Also made a difference again, Man United. The assist he provided was really good. So yeah, I feel pretty sure about Sané, but obviously Musiala still. I mean, he's only just come back from an injury, so there's still a slight possibility of Müller starting ahead of him. But as I said earlier, I feel Musiala should start again after what he showed against Man United. So yeah, those are some of the main concerns, and then. I think with Leipzig, for example, I think Raum and Henriks are likely to keep their places. Poulsen could be rotated out up front. I know he's not a high-owned player, but if you have Sesko, if you're considering Benjamin Sesko, I think he's likely to come into the starting lineup this week after coming on and scoring in midweek. So Sesko is a player who could maybe benefit from the English Woche, as they say in Germany.
Yeah, they're being quite careful with Sesko, aren't they? And obviously Poulsen. I mean, Poulsen has played well at the start of the season, in fairness to him. But you kind of feel like it's inevitable that Sesko will kind of earn that spot as the season goes on from the player that we've already seen in the impact that he's had. One quick one. Is it okay to drop Brandt this week? Obviously, Dortmund didn't have a good time of it against PSG, and nor did they have a good time of it with regards to injuries as well. I think there was a few muscle injuries that they suffered. Obviously, Sabitzer being one as well, Runa. So what are we thinking about keeping Brandt with Dortmund maybe being slightly thinner on the ground injury-wise.
I still think Brandt is the best option from Dortmund, but with that being said, I think it would be okay to drop him. Of course, it depends on who you want to replace him with, but I mean, if you're considering bringing in Musiala instead, I think that would be viable. I don't think he's a must-have player at the moment, considering Dortmund's rather poor form.
Yeah, agreed. Smashing. So I think that's it for all the questions. Hope we've got to all of them this morning. So thank you to everyone that has engaged and asked us questions whilst viewing. If you wanted to sit back and watch along, then that's absolutely fine as well. Just before we sign off for this morning, again, just a quick one reminder to smash a like on the video ahead of match week 5 and what obviously it always should be ahead of a really exciting weekend of Bundesliga footy. Comment, obviously, if you're not watching live, pop a comment into the obviously underneath the show on YouTube, and we'll try and get to it before again the Friday evening match kicks off. I'll be on my phone a little bit, but then I'll be shooting across the channel, so I'll be not so reliable on my signal so much. And of course, subscribe to the channel, please, and join the growing community that we have here on Over the Bar, and particularly our Bundesliga fantasy community, which is fantastic. Just seeing a few comments have come in here. Just thank you. Yeah, thank you all that has watched this morning with us. Thank you, Runa, as ever, for providing the golden tips and hints ahead of this weekend. Hope you all have a fantastic match week 5 and points aplenty. And we'll catch you next time. Cheers all.
Bye.